All right, welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy Duncan. It is Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central. And if it is Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central, Jimmy, it is Black Men
That's
Speak.
right, it's Black Men Speak. So if you haven't already, please take the time to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Not necessarily in that order,
Absolutely.
but and also help spread the word. So this is the most informative talk show on the internet dealing with black issues.
Absolutely, Jimmy. And as everyone knows, this is the most thought-provoking show on
Yes,
the
it
internet,
is.
and we are not. We embrace taking on the tough issues, and tonight will be no different.
That's right. Like Keisha said, this is not for play. So we want to give a big thanks to Liquid for providing our theme music. And so, Tom, what is our topic for tonight?
Jimmy, we have another very interesting and thrilling subject tonight. We talked a little bit about this last week, Jimmy, but we're going to dig into this
Uh
how the
oh.
emasculation of the black man has destabilized Black America. And this is a very long, deep, sordid story, but we're going to talk about the emasculation of the black man and how we feel that has destabilized, excuse me, Black America. And this is a long, protracted story, and we have a lot to unpeel in
Right.
terms of the proverbial onion and a lot of issues that we need to deal with as it pertains to our community.
Well, Tom, for me, this is not an isolated issue. For me, this is not something that we can separate from the bigger picture. This is just a chapter in that book that's all part of the destruction of black people here in America, and this is a very big piece of it. The destruction of the black man, the destruction of the black family, all of it tied together. I mean, there's from beginning to end, from the 1700s up to 2021, all of this has just been one long story. So I don't want people to think that this is something that happened in isolation or by accident. It's all part of a bigger plan. And Tom, before anyone accused me of, of being part of some conspiracy theory, let me just say this. The scientific method is you observe something, you come up with a theory, and then you do experiments to either prove the theory or disprove the theory. We have seen the destruction of black people in this country. So this is our observation. It ain't like we're saying Elvis is still alive. That's a conspiracy theory because there's no proof behind it whatsoever. There's nothing you can do to test it. But for the destruction of the black people in America, we've seen this. And so our opinions here and the things, our comments are not necessarily, things that are just out of the air on the crazy side. And we can easily prove the things that we're saying. So let's talk about the emasculation of the black man. So for me,
And
Tom,
and, and before
go
and
ahead.
before we get started, Jimmy, for those of us who are out there listening, first and foremost, we want to thank you for joining us.
Right.
But we also, as we talk through this subject, we want to let you know that our chat line is open. So make sure that you have some comments or some things you'd like us to delve into. Feel more than free to jump on the chat line. In addition to that, feel free to call and voice your opinion, express your opinion. That is
Right.
972-497-2280. Again, I will give you that number, 972-497-2280. Jimmy, I apologize for
No, no
interrupting.
problem.
Go
Go
right
ahead.
ahead.
Now we had to get that business out anyway. So yes, please join and post your comments on the chat line. And if you want to join the conversation, now we welcome you guys. We love to have guests here, so we love to hear from you guys. So please call in and share your comments or your views with us. So Tom, let's just do what we do and let's just jump into it.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jimmy.
So I was saying, Tom, that this for me is just one. It's been one long saga. It's just a movie. So don't take snapshots in time and try to figure this thing out. This started in the 1700s and it continues into 2021, and it's all a process to control black people, and part of it is to control the country. So it's not just black people anymore, but I think the working out how to do it and perfecting how to control people was done on us first, like most social experiments. But yeah, the tearing down of the black man starts in slavery. You take away his manhood, you take away his ability to protect his wife, his daughters, to raise his children, to have to sustain his family in any kind of way. And in time, one of the books I read, and this is why I don't do slave novels anymore. I mean, I read some slave books, not necessarily about the horrors of slavery, but about the psychology of slavery, which is horrifying. But a lot of this, when you go back and look at how to be a good slaver, there are a lot of it pertaining to white men sleeping with, of course, the slave women, not necessarily because they were attracted to the slave women. A lot of times it was a mental control thing, a psychological control that you can't even protect your woman when she's up, and you know this, that she's at the master's house in the big house, spending the night, and you know what's going on. And then she has to come back into your house and share your bed the next night if the master says so, or if it's your daughters. You can't even protect your daughters from being raped. The psychological effect that it has on a man, and then throughout history time, to be constantly reminded that you are inferior to white men, just adds to it. And then you look at like we talked about the destruction of the black school system, the destruction of the black economic system, and then the conspiracy of taking jobs away from black men, and then the destruction of the black family time, and then to run the black men out of the household altogether, and now. We're engaged in a process of making sure. I mean, this is just icing on the cake now, to make sure that he never rises up, because he'll never be strong enough mentally and psychologically to challenge anyone, because we are slowly turning black men into women. It's not enough that they're sagging
Absolutely.
their pants and advertising that they're looking for someone to poke something in the back of them, but it's everything else. So as black men continue to let the black woman go out and fight the battles, raise the money while he sits at home, he is going to become more irrelevant in the future time than he ever was before, and less of a threat.
Absolutely, Jimmy. And there were a lot of things that I'd like to put some ink pens and bullet points through, because when you talk about the psychological colonialism
Hmm.
of the black community in particular, and you pinpoint what was done to break and or castrate the psychology of the alpha male, the black male, in what we call the transatlantic slave trade, what some call the Middle Passage,
Right.
and they talk about what happened to the psychology of the black man and the black woman, but the black man in particular. But part of that passage was the breaking of the alpha male after they stole him, after he was sold into slavery, to break him en route from the motherland, the African continent, to the Americas, so that he would become a good slave for the white man. And it was
Right.
obviously a strategic interest of the Europeans to break the black man before he got to America. And now let's be very clear, Jimmy. A lot of them didn't go for it. A lot of them died before they got here. A lot
Right.
of them jumped
Some
over
of them
the ship.
committed
They would
suicide, just jumped over the side of the ship,
exactly.
drowned.
Many of them committed suicide and would rather die under their own terms than to live a slave in
Right.
America. But one of the things that you pointed to that I'll ask people, if you have not read this book, should be another book that should be on every household in America's bookshelf, is The Miseducation of the Negro by
Carter
Carter
G.
G.
Woodson,
Woodson.
yes.
And he talks a lot about the systematic structures that were put in
Correct.
place through European focused systematic oppression, the education systems, and all of these structural forces that were put in place that were to break down the strength and the unity of the black community, and to make them subservient to the white community. And his thesis is that you literally have to unlearn and relearn your whole culture and psychology, your religion, and everything that defines you as a person and as a community of people. All of that being said, Jimmy, is that we have a lot of conversation to delve into, to unpack this and discuss some of what we have to do as a community. Because, quite frankly, when you're in a situation where you don't control your destiny, it is a very, 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 very long uphill battle. But, Jimmy, we can't even speak to this as just an American conversation, but we have to look at this as the African diaspora, and that is including the African continent as well, because not only did they colonize the minds of Africans as they were brought from
Right.
the continent here, but they also systematically put in structural programs in order to colonize the Africans in Africa, while of course they were stealing the human capital. They were also beginning to divide, conquer, and extrapolate the wealth in Africa and colonizing Africa while black folks were there.
Well, Tom, if you read the, trying to think of the name of, it's called I think it was called the Manifest Destiny by Ben Franklin.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yes, sir.
he points out, he gives part of the reason as to why. I mean, he basically points out that white people had to enslave black people for their own survival, and that the things that are learned here, that when you're looking at pitting one group against another, the dominant group always feels that it has to stay in charge. And then once these atrocities are committed, once you have sins against man by another man, you can't turn around and allow the people that you are oppressing to ever become powerful enough to oppress you. Because you don't want to go through what you put them through. You know your mindset, and you assume that their mindset is just as evil and just as heartless as yours. And so if they ever came to power, so we have to understand that, Tom, that this plays into the fears of white people and their psyche. That if we ever come to power, that we may do to them what historically they have done to us and continue to do. Some of them. Now, I'm not casting a blanket over all white people, because I think most are just good, decent people. But there are some, Tom, that are hell bent on keeping black people down and keeping black people in a desperate way so they can feel good about themselves. Just like Ben Franklin said, the enslavement of black people, the treatment, and everything else that goes with it has all benefited white people. And so when we talk about white privilege, I think we don't focus on what really white privilege is. We're thinking about, what happens inside of a store or getting a cab or a home loan. No, the white privilege is the destruction of everyone who's not white so you can feel good about being white, even though your life may be jacked up and you're not happy.
Yes, Jimmy. And I think the sad commentary about this is that over a series of centuries of this psychological denigration of everything that is African, and I'm talking Black African,
Right.
not the folks who went to Africa and called themselves Africans. Malcolm X said a long time ago, just because you put kittens in an oven doesn't make them biscuits. They have denigrated everything that is Black, everything that is African to be ugly, to be
Yes.
premeditated, to be criminal, in essence. And so all of the images that you see when you look at one of the channels that have been used in order to destroy the minds of Black folks and our young people in particular is, in essence, destroying the identity of the Black male in order to create friction in the Black household, in
Right. Which
order
they've done
to
that
neutralize,
successfully.
absolutely, to neutralize the protection and the provision of the
Yes.
Black woman and the Black family, and therefore dividing the Black community. And unfortunately, in too many cases, we have bought into the segmentation of what you're calling the theory of manifest destiny, which basically says that white folks feel that they are
Divine, Tom.
divinely ordained to
By
control the
God.
world globally.
By God, and somehow
Now,
when we talk about our natural place in the world stage and how we should be the dominant people, people look at us like we're crazy, like we're saying something strange and foreign. But for white people to feel this way, it's okay, and we're
yeah,
okay with it, with them being okay with it.
absolutely, Jimmy. So, I mean, we unfortunately have allowed these theories to segment, divide, and distract us from what's most important in terms of our responsibility and our duty. And
Right.
I'm talking about, and to black men in particular, being able to put first things first in terms of being an alpha male. And so therein lies the premise of our conversation in terms of the theory of why there is such a strategic intent to emasculate, to dehumanize, to criminalize, and to destroy the black male, because they understand that if you destroy the male of any culture, I hate to quote Abraham Lincoln, or he is at least quoted saying, uh, what is it that he said? A nation divided cannot stand. And
Correct.
when I look at the culture of Africans, because we're all Africans at the end of the day, a nation divided cannot stand. So if you have the household and the community divided by taking the male, the protector, and the provider out of it, Jimmy, the women become unnatural to their natural form. The children become unnatural to their natural form, and they become very deviant in nature at best.
Well, Tom, we've talked about this before. We already know this, that women need to feel secure to be in their right mental state. An insecure woman is dangerous in a family structure. So she needs to be somewhere safe where her natural abilities can come out. They can't come out when she's worried about whether the lights are going to be on, whether there's going to be food on the table for the kids, whether we're going to be homeless on the street. These are not things that bring out the best in a woman. So taking care of her security interests first, goes a long way to bringing out the best in her. And if a man can't do that, for whatever reason, if you can't do that, then you're no good to her. It's not about whether you
Absolutely.
love her or not. I mean, you are no good to her, and certainly do not put her in a position to have your children when you can't provide for her or the children. That is just
Yes,
being
sir.
reckless beyond belief. And this is where we are today, Tom. But hey, Tom, let me say this. Let's get this quick commercial break out of the way, and then we're gonna come
Okay.
right back.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, and we're back.
All
As
righty.
As a message from one of our sponsors, sendmymessage.com, owned by yours truly. So, but that is the artificial intelligence sales bot I was telling you about. So we're going to start running the advertisement. That's just one of the commercials that we're streaming now to announce her. But anyway, let's get back to the conversation, Tom.
Okay.
Um, and so we know that this is part of a larger strategy. The whole destruction of the black family, of black people, and part of it does start with the destruction of the black man. Here's my disappointment, Tom. is that we've fallen into the trap and we continue to. What do we do now that we're in it to get out of it?
Well, Jimmy, that's a good question. I think that's a multi pronged strategy that we have to reevaluate because we talked about this several different times before, Jimmy. But integration was what some people consider to be the best, but in a lot of cases, has been the worst thing that ever happened to the unity of the Black community. Because in essence, in being led by some of the civil rights leaders during that period of time, during the 50s and 60s, and our intent to be able to sit at the lunch counters, to be able to do business and sleep at white owned hotels and go to white stores and things of that nature. Unfortunately, we in essence dismantled our community,
We
the
did.
same community that provided leaders, the same community that provided economies, the same community that provided jobs and opportunities and mentors to our young boys and our young girls. And so the question is, Malcolm said it best, is we first have to stop looking for validation in
Yes,
other communities. We can't look for validation in other communities and be whole. We have to stop seeking the acceptance of other people and learn to accept ourselves. Because in his words, he said, once we begin to accept ourselves, once we begin to build our own economies, we don't have to worry about trying to get a job in their plants. We don't have
that's
to worry
correct.
about getting into bedrooms, and we don't have to worry about eating at their kitchens because we will have their own. And so, first and foremost, we have to go back and refine our identity. Anthony Browder said it best. All history is a current event because it helps us understand not only how we got here, but where we have to go. And in this case, how we were specifically unwound and got where we are to figure out how we find our way back. And so we have to find our new origin. We have to understand our history in order to reclaim what is ours rightfully. We have to reclaim what was stolen. We have to reclaim what has been exploited, including our community, our consciousness, our religion, our right for mind, our economy, our confidence, and all of those segments that make a whole an entire culture of people. But most important, Jimmy, I think that the biggest issue that we have to deal with is understanding that we have all of these different things that we call ourselves, whether we call ourselves African Americans, Blacks, Negroes, Nigerians, Ghanaians, Somalians. At the end of the day, we're all Africans. And
Well,
unfortunately,
everybody
what
is,
has happened,
Tom.
in essence, you're right, because there's really only one race. But when we start talking about the protection and defense, because that is the area, Jimmy, that has left us in a bind, is that we're in a place now that we have been segmented into so many different strategies that we don't see the commonality that we all have because of the differences that someone else has enforced into our psychology. And so, therefore, we have to find the unifying line in our culture, in our people, in order to begin to control our destiny so that we can build together. We have to find what makes us common. Malcolm said it best. You have to have Black unity before there is Black white unity. And if white folks or the white community controls everything in our destiny, or at least a large majority of it, there can be no Black white community when somebody else is controlling your destiny. You have to control your own destiny before you begin to partner and have conversations about unity with another group of people who, in essence,
Tom,
have control over your control.
that's gonna be extremely hard, Tom.
You're correct.
We have
I
such
didn't say it was easy.
a poor self image issue to deal with first. Um, this is why I say I'm the Jimmy Stewart without apology. And now I've upgraded my mantra to say that I'm one of the smartest men in the universe. And I
There we
said,
go. We fixed that. We fixed
we
that last
fixed it.
week.
Yes. And so I say that probably without any hesitation, and it's not because I'm an egoist. It's because I'm proud of myself, and we should all be the greatest. Because we are unique in when you talk about the atoms, the particles, the molecules that make us up, Tom. We're the most unique entity in the universe, and we're made in God's image. We're very powerful. When the first group of Africans left the continent of Africa to populate the world, if those Africans had gotten sick, gotten a virus, gotten the SARS virus, and died off, where would they have left us? After five extinction periods in the world that we know of, when the world had to basically come back to life, where we're talking less than 10,000 humans at some points were left. It took a lot of strength and character, Tom, to start over and once again venture back out into the world to repopulate the world. If African people didn't have the fortitude, the strength to do that, physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength to do it, where would the world be today? And it's sad, Tom, that we're in this shape that we're in, that we're allowed ourselves to be hoodwinked and snookered behind the eight ball, to use a billiard term, listen to other people who don't have our best interests at heart, but we listen to them blindly to our detriment. We are great people who have done great things, and Tom, we're now in a country, and we act like we haven't done a damn thing, and we allow ourselves to be subjugated this way, and we don't fight for our freedom, we don't fight for our identity. Hell, we can't even walk around and say I'm black and I'm proud anymore. What the hell is going on here? You can't be proud of yourself. You can't stand up and defend yourself. You're certainly not going to stand up and defend your family, your woman, your children. You won't fight for education. Our kids go to poor schools. We know this. Where's the fight for this? And Tom, I went on vacation. We have a
All right,
caller.
Jimmy. I think we may have a caller. Jimmy, give me just
Okay.
a second. Tommy Duncan, Black Men Speak. How may I help you?
Speak up, caller.
Hello, hello. Do we have anyone there? Okay, I thought we
Okay.
have someone. It looks like they hung up. If anyone is out there who would like to call in, do feel free to give us a call at 972-497-2280. 972-497-2280. Hopefully, the caller will have an opportunity to call back. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts. So, Jimmy, I apologize.
Oh, no
Go ahead and
problem,
finish
no
what you were
problem.
saying.
I was going to just point out, Tom, that how we've been brainwashed, and it is very sad for me. And I have these discussions on an ongoing basis. I just had this a similar discussion with a couple of my brother and sister-in-law who I love to death, and they're very active members of AKA and A5A, and which you and I are members of. And this is
Mhm.
not an indictment against any fraternity or sorority. It's an indictment against all of them, the whole basket. My complaint is that I joined A5A, Tom, because it was an organization of great leaders. And my only question today is where's the leadership? We say that we're the school for the better making of men. Well, how are we the school for the better making of men when all this is happening in the black community and no one's speaking up? And so I don't want to hear that, oh, you have to be active to know what's going on. If the fruits of our labor is not being seen by everyone, then there is none. So everyone needs to step up. I'm putting myself in that basket also. Everyone at this point has to step up. If you have any sense of dignity about yourself and intelligence, any kind of gumption, any kind of balls, we all have to dig our way out of this and work to get out of this hole that we're in. Not dig our way out of it, but climb our way out of it. And Tom, if we're not doing that, and I just don't see the fruit of that happening on a large enough scale where anyone could be talking about, they're a good organization now. We're all resting on the past, Tom, all, past accomplishments. We had a show on this, and I said I was very doubtful that we would produce any more great leaders in the black community anymore because no one's actually putting themselves out there to be great. Yeah, you can't even say that you're great. People can't even say that, hey, I want to. Everybody should be walking around saying, hey, I'm one of the greatest in the universe at what I do, and be proud of that. But if you say that now, people look at you really strange, like I can't believe he said that. Well, why aren't you saying it? Aren't you proud of yourself? Aren't you, in your self-esteem high? The reality is not, Tom. We've been beat down for so long, and we simply accept it. I refuse to
I would
accept it.
agree.
I'm not taking a backseat to anybody, and no one. I'm not going to admit that anyone's superior to me in any kind of way. Period. That's just my ego won't allow me to go there. And I wish everyone would come join me so we can start doing what we have to do. But Tom, You're not going to make that first step if you don't believe in yourself. So all the other stuff that we talk about is not going to happen because people don't believe in themselves. They believe whatever the white people tell them to believe.
I would agree, Jimmy. And I think first and foremost, we have to start with our young black men. We have a lot of issues. They are very complicated. But we have to start with our young black men because of the absence
The fathers, yes.
of father figures in our households and therefore our communities. We cannot depend on the school districts to raise our sons to
Or
be
educate
strong
them.
alpha males.
That's right. It's not going to
We
happen.
cannot, absolutely, we cannot, quite frankly, depend on the pastor to be the father in our households in order to raise strong alpha males, Jimmy. We have to have fathers. Now, I understand that in this case, let's be very practical. Everybody may not be married to the mother of their child, but as a father,
Stay
and this is
involved.
where, Jimmy, we have to hold the brothers accountable. We still have a responsibility to be in the lives of the sons and daughters that we have brought into this world to be a strong father figure and an alpha male because it neutralizes a lot of the dysfunction
Yes.
that we are seeing in our young men. It neutralizes a lot of the aberrant behavior that we are seeing in our young women, where we're seeing young women, girls, little bitty girls who are hyper aggressive and some who are very hyper masculine. And then we are seeing very effeminate, psychologically subjugated young
Well,
black men. A lot
yes.
of this evidence and
Tom,
things that we see
okay.
every day, Jimmy,
Black men
it
is a
sickens
stretch.
me. Yeah,
Calling them
it
black men
sickens
is a stretch. I mean, black boys.
for well, some you're right because quite frankly, what I see is some of them don't want to grow up to be men. They
That's
literally
right.
want to grow up to be women, and literally every day, if I'm out for a long enough period of time, I see young boys dressing themselves, carrying themselves
Yep.
as women, and I understand that comes from the influence of, in a lot of cases, black women only who are surrounding them. And that is not to speak to the sisters who have been able to raise by themselves very responsible, well rounded black men. But in too many cases, Jimmy, unfortunately, we see the opposite.
Right.
And sometimes I understand that is sometimes because of the enmity between the mother and the father, that sometimes that child is used like a pawn
That's
against the
correct,
father, and the
Tom.
father is not able to be in the lives of those child. I'm going to say this very brief, sisters, regardless of the fissure in the relationship between the father of your children, it is not your right in order to destroy the relationship or the image of the father in the eyes of that child, regardless of how things turned out. Brothers,
Right.
on the other end, we have to step up and be the alpha male in our children's lives so that we understand that as they grow up, they are not broken. It is much easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. We have got to be in the lives of our children. And for those brothers in particular, who decided that you're going to plant your seed in much fertile soil and you're having several children by several women in your attempt to be able to overcompensate for what you consider to be your lack of masculinity and not taking responsibility for any of your children. It's time to step up. You got to do something different because we're going to pay the consequences. We're already
Already
paying the
paying the
consequences.
consequence, Tom.
Exactly.
Already
If you
paying it.
don't step up and be a father, being a protector, being a provider for the next generation.
And Tom, that is what an alpha male does. You provide. You have to have a sense of independence. You need to build a home structure or be able to provide a home environment to bring a woman into it and produce children with that woman. If you can't do that, then you're being irresponsible. You know, to have children and do it in reverse order. You know, if you can't put a roof over her head, you can't at least marry her in front of friends, family, and God. You can't accept responsibility for her, her safety, and for the children. If you can't do these things, then you're not a man. You're just a boy in a man's body. You know, with a boy's mentality, and we have too much of that, Tom. So now it's time to stop it and come back and start doing the responsible thing. I don't care what your education level is. I don't care if you're in jail or not. When you get out, make it your sense of purpose to come back and start stepping up to the plate and being a real man and stop being a boy child. And then the other thing, Tom, you mentioned, and it almost went on the radar with me, is the damn preachers. Why aren't the damn
Yep.
preachers preaching about this? You know what I mean? Once again, this is a problem that I have, Tom. When I deal and I talk with people, everyone's telling me about, Jimmy, no, it's not quite that bad, and you don't quite have it right. Well, all I see is more and more destruction, and we're falling further and further behind. The numbers prove it. When we look at black wealth and the gaps there, look at educational achievement, in every category, Tom, we are last in every positive category, and we are first and second in just about every negative category. Until that dynamic starts to change, then I don't want to talk about how good things are right now, or I'm being too critical of black people, black organizations, black churches, black social leaders, political leaders. I want to see change, Tom, and I hope to see it before I die. And I don't think I have too many years left, so and I'm challenging myself to be part of the solution also.
Absolutely, Jimmy. And we have a couple of comments here that we'll
Oh, okay.
address. They were talking, said you're pointing out some of the problems with the community. Can we have a dialogue about the solutions? So we're talking about some of the solutions to some of these problems. I mean, and from my perspective, and obviously there is going to be more than one solution. We have got to start with undergirding our young black men and developing our young black men and holding grown black men responsible, regardless of what has happened with the mother, if they are not still with the mother. And let's be very clear, for those men who are in a household with their mother and with their children, and they are not standing up and they are not leading, you got to step up,
Yeah.
brush yourself off, and you got to lead, because that sister is only doing what she feels she has to do.
Correct.
If she feels that you are not. And so when you are not putting yourself in the position of the alpha male, you're not providing, you're not protecting, you're not putting your hedge of protection around her, not just physically, but emotionally, then there's going to be a great deal of anxiety. There's going to be a great deal of anger from that sister, because she feels that she is not being protected by the man who is supposed to be the alpha male in her house. So brothers, and I'm talking about brothers who have brought children into this world, regardless of whether you're in the house or not, we've got to step up. And for those of us who see other brothers who are not taking care of their responsibilities, we've got to hold them accountable. And even if it comes down to some harsh conversations, even if some fists go up, the reality of it is, what's at stake? Our community. Bottom line, we've got to get it done. And obviously, we've got to start putting our arms around our young brothers and being men. I mean, at the end of the day, the images that are being thrust upon us on the big screen, on the small screen, on poster boards are dysfunctional at best. So what we've got to do is turn the TV off. On the most part, there's not too much on the radio. Turn that off. We have to create our own content. We've got to create our own domain. We've got to turn the TV off. Jimmy, how many movies have you seen? I can't count too many on one hand where you see a strong alpha male protecting his family, protecting his wife, protecting his children, Tom, on the big screen.
Yeah, very, very little. So
we've got to turn.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we've got to turn the television off. We protest about what other folks are doing to us, but we're not talking about what our own entertainers are doing to us on the screen.
That
because
is true,
at the end of the day,
bunch of sellouts.
The white mainstream mass media complex pays people in order to destroy the image of our black men and our black women in our black community. That's who they pay. They do not pay strong black men. Very rare, very rarely.
Well, Tom, and if they do, they're certainly not going to allow him or her to have a positive message. You know, I mean, so basically, once again, you're selling your character and you're selling the black people out for money, and we have far too much of that, Tom. So let me share a personal story real quick. I have a son who that I didn't get a chance to raise because his mother was playing keep away with him. But he has come back into my life. He wants to go to college, so I'm putting him through school, and so he's getting ready to start college. It's going to be a freshman year, and so I tell him when we talk. I said, when you walk into the room, you tell everyone I'm the smartest person in this classroom, and I tell him that he's a shy person. He doesn't like to be outspoken like that. But I want him to start speaking up and declaring things because there's a great deal of social pressure, Tom, when you make statements like that. When you talk it, people are going to start expecting you to walk. And so I need him to step up to the plate, not waste my money in school, and perform. And one of the best ways to make that happen is to put social pressure around you. If you said that you were going to ace this class and you're going to do well, and hell, I'm one of the thought leaders of this class, you can't be sitting back there making C's and D's in the end. So in order to put a little extra pressure on him, I pressure him to be boastful, to speak up about what he's going to do, and with the hope that he'll live up to it. Did we get someone to call in, or we got another comment?
No, no, that was just
And so, Tom, I would advise people if you have kids coming up, get them to pledge to the certain things that are positive, and tell them, encourage them that when they speak to people, let them know that hey, when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it's going to be. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do something positive with my life. I'm strong, I'm smart, I'm this, I'm that, and not be afraid to let them go out and say these things about themselves. Help them develop a good positive self-image. Don't shut them up and be afraid that when they speak up, I'll say I'm sorry. And my child gets a little beside itself sometimes. Boy, go over there and shut up. That's not the attitude. Encourage your
yeah.
kids to speak up. Put positive thoughts in their head. If you want to brainwash them, because the system, Tom, that you're talking about, that whole media complex, the entertainment complex, all with their messages to brainwash our kids, our people, our women, our men against us. You have to constantly counter that. And you can't counter it with just a conversation. Oh, son, I expect you to do good things in life. No. You have them pledge every day. Hey, what are you going to do with your life? I'm going to do something positive, Mama. I'm going to do something good, Daddy. Every day have them and reinforce that. So when they grow up, all they know is, I promised Mama and Daddy I was going to do something positive with my life. I need to live up to that. I don't want them to think I was lying to them all those damn years. I'm sorry, Tyler. I know I can go
Absolutely.
on a little bit, but go ahead.
No problem. We have another comment. Thank you, Southern South. It says we should look within ourselves and bring it to the table. Start in our community meetings, and we should also address issues in the school. Now, these are very good points. Thank you very much, Southern South. Starting within self first, starting within our community,
Right.
having community meetings and addressing what's going on in schools. And we have talked about this on several occasions, but we do need to unpack what is happening in our schools and how that is impacting our young people.
Well, Tom, forget just talking about the issues of school. We need to take over the school boards. We need
Mm.
strong, positive people to start running and be elected to those school boards. Stop hiring superintendents that are not educating your kids. Stop hiring teachers and counselors that are not serious about educating your kids, and don't allow the district that you live in, the state that you live in, to continue to lower the bar, to water down education, so everybody can cross the damn bar. Basically challenge your system to raise the bar, to make it even harder. So your kids can get a quality education and be challenged. The can't think of the guys. What's the Stanford professor? We did his book many years ago, where he makes the point that no one rises to low expectation, and that a lot of black schools, it's not that the teachers are bad people, it's just they have very low expectation of black kids. So when you can't properly challenge someone when you don't think they're capable of doing it. So you just accept mediocre work. You accept their failing work and just keep passing them, so you can get your bonus and keep your job. And we need to stop that, Tom. And the only way it's going to stop is some of us need to get on those school boards and start speaking out. So don't
I,
just talk
I would
about
agree with
it.
that,
Do
Jimmy.
something. Make it
I would agree with
happen.
that, Jimmy. And not only must we get involved with our school boards, not only must we hold our administrators accountable, but we also, as parents and as stakeholders in these schools, have to get involved with PTA. Talk to the teachers, be very visible, be very present, because you see what happens. And I have a lot of friends who are teachers. Our kids excel, and our young boys excel in particular through about the fourth or fifth grade. But after the fourth or fifth grade, and we're probably talking about 8 or 9 years old, there
They're the back of the
becomes
class.
this
Yes.
indirect psychological scheme to all of a sudden make them feel that they are not good in math. They don't understand how to read. Putting them into these remedial classes,
Right.
quite frankly, in a lot of cases, they're bored and the material isn't moving fast
Right.
enough for them. But unfortunately, what happens is these teachers, most of which don't look like them anyway, are putting them over to the side. They rot in the corner, and the parents, not knowing anything else, are believing the teacher that their kids can't learn because they're not engaged. They don't understand what's going on in the classroom. They're not teaching with, they're not talking with the teachers. They're not holding not just those teachers, but their children accountable for exceeding expectations. And all of a sudden, you have a kid who's in high school who is in remedial math, literally cannot read. And let's be very clear, they are passing children.
They are,
They
John. They're
called
just
it
pushing them
social.
through.
They called it social promotion back in the day. But literally, these kids are graduating high school who cannot fundamentally
Well,
read.
Tom,
They cannot do math, and they have no critical thinking skills. And it's not just on the teachers, it's not just on the schools, but the parents are just as accountable.
yes, they are.
And we have got to be involved because there is a three-legged school: the child, the teacher, and the parent. And if the parent isn't engaged, if the parent isn't involved, they are just as responsible and
Yes, they
accountable.
are.
So as a parent, you have to be
No,
involved.
Tom, not just as more responsible because it's your child. But you're
Absolutely.
right. There have been so many studies that have pointed this out that black males, black boys, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, are leading their class. Smartest, brightest, most energetic. By the time they get to middle school, they're at the back of the class. And so what happened? What happened from the time they enter the school system where they're outperforming everyone to the time by the time they get out of it or drop out and they're behind everyone. So there's something wrong with, and I think in losing the race, he points out that when he went around the country doing surveys of asking kids, what's the lowest grade that you can bring home and that's acceptable? And to white Jewish kids, it was like an A minus. To Asian kids, it was an A plus. To black girls, it was a B. For black boys, it was a C plus or a D. So when parents allow you to bring home mediocre average grades at best, then kids are gonna pick up on that, and the teachers pick up on that. Unfortunately, rather than challenge the kids and say, "Hell no, this C is not good enough in my class. You can do better," and make sure there's consequences for not performing. And I told this story before, Tom. I'm gonna tell it again because it's applicable to what we're talking about. A guy I used to work with many years ago, second generation Vietnamese. Parents immigrated here, and he told me that the worst ass whooping he ever got in his life, Tom, was he brought home a report card with three A's and four B's. And parents almost beat him to an inch of his life because they were told that all they knew was that A's were good and that was it. And so he was only allowed to bring home like two B's. He brought home four, and so he had to pay the price for that. You know how many black parents would jump for joy and throw a parade if their child came home with three A's and four B's. That would not
Yeah,
be an ass whooping moment. So we need to change. In fact, we need to start bringing the belt back. That's another topic, and we can do a show on at a later date. But with time, we have to raise. The point is, we have to raise the bar. We have to set
agreed.
the level of expectation higher than what it is and start demanding that we get more from the system, from our kids. And then ultimately, Tom, the parents are ultimately responsible for educating their kids, not the teacher, not the system. If they fail you, then you just have to roll your sleeve up and teach your kids yourself. Homeschool.
I'd agree. Absolutely. And so, what that also means is that you cannot depend on the education
You
system
can't.
to teach your kid what is going to be responsible and healthy for their psychology. What does that mean, Jimmy? What that means is that we're going to have to put books on our shelves at home that are not on the books in the shelves at the school library. What does that look like, Jimmy? Because we've talked about several different books, whether we talk about Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett, whether we talk about the
Right.
autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, whether we talk about Black Fortunes, which we just read not too long ago. We're talking about books that, quite frankly, the mainstream education system doesn't want your children to read because they don't want your children to have strong self esteem. They do not want your children to have a strong identity. And if you need some books, Jimmy and I both have a ton of books that you need to have on your shelves at home, making sure that your
I, I,
kids are
will, I,
reading
will, I
those.
will donate
And
a gift to anyone who's interested. While we're talking about books,
absolutely.
Dom, I do have a book that I want to recommend for anyone who's
Mhm.
interested on this title, Dismantling Black Manhood by Daniel Black. Very good book. It's not a long read, but it gets into a lot of what we're talking about as far as the psychology of how to break down a black man and make him what he is today. And it's a good read. Gives you a lot of insight, and there are things, Tom, that we haven't even discussed because we run out of time, that are going on that we need to know and be aware of because we're just walking through life, not aware of all the influences that are operating on us that are affecting our thinking and our psyche, Tom, and that are making us limit ourselves and have a poor self-image of ourselves. And you may have to ask yourself, Tom, if we have a poor self-image, what's driving that process? Why do we have a poor self-image? Well, we watch television 8, 10 hours a day. That's part of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing positive there. We go pay $20 to go to the movies and popcorn and drinks and stuff. There's nothing positive on the big screen. You turn the radio on. There's nothing positive there. And even time on the internet. I discovered something that's been around for a while, and I just discovered it here recently. Something called battle rap.
Never heard
And
of it.
yes, I never heard of it either until here recently. And so I started checking out a little bit of it. I was like, okay, this looks interesting. These guys are very masterful at coming up with raps on the fly and stuff and going back and forth battling. But Tom, none of it's positive. Every one of them wants to be a gangster, and they know they're not. They're soft as butter, but claiming to have this gun and that gun. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to, rape your wife. I'm going to do this and kill you. I mean, there's nothing positive. I'm like, surely there's going to be at least one person that will rap about doing something, going to school, getting a degree, getting a PhD, doing something positive, making a contribution, and rapping about that. But no, more of the same thing. Just glorifying the gangster lifestyle. Um, like I said, and a lot of these guys aren't even gangsters, but they're just playing the roles. So you can't even go to YouTube and get a positive message.
Why don't we do this with the time that we have left? Because we are
Okay,
right at the top of the hour.
right.
Let's put our list of we really the subject, how emasculation of the black man has destabilized the black community. And we've talked about that. We've talked about some solutions. But in short order, let's give our list of things that we must do or not do in order to, as you mentioned earlier, turn the trajectory on this conversation in order to create a stronger next 50 years for our black men in particular, and therefore our black communities. Because in my opinion, the key to strengthening and undergirding our solution is going to undergirding our community is going to be shaping, rebuilding the image of the black man. And it's not going to be anybody else's job but ours. What are the things we should be doing? What are the things we should not be
Tom,
doing?
we write off the current generation, and we start with the kids, but we have to brainwash our kids into positivity, into greatness. So
How do we do that?
we need to tell them on a daily basis how great they are. We need to make them believe that they're great. Pledge yourself to greatness. Tell me how you're going to do great things over and over. I want on a daily basis when we talk at the dinner table. Hey son, tell me what your plans are for greatness when you become a man. And have your children give some thought to it, and then pledge to do these things. And if you start at an early age, Tom, and constantly reinforce that same conversation over and over in their head, have them promise. And growing up, it was just expected I was going to go to college. My mother graduated from college. My father graduated from college. I never even thought that there was any chance I wouldn't graduate from college. But I have a younger brother and a sister that didn't get the same programming. There was no expectation for them to graduate from college, so they never pursued it. So I would say let's start with the young boys, and then have them pledge to greatness and think about what they're going to do to make the things great, how to make themselves great, how to make the community great, how to make the world better, if you want to go that far, and tell me all the time, over and over. So as you grow up, these messages are implanted in your head. You've been thinking about it since you could walk and talk, and now you're going off into the world. So in your mind, you have to live up to these things because this is all you know. Don't let the rest of the world and society program your kids against themselves, against their success. Because, like you
I would
said,
agree.
it's much more difficult to repair the grown folks. So fix the young people. Let's start with
Yes,
them, and I think if we do that, maybe the next generation we'd have a chance.
I would agree. One thing that I would add to that, Jimmy, is they'll do it to do it or not to do. Turn off the TV and open a book. Open books. The reality of it is, Jimmy, we have to broaden our horizons
Yes.
intellectual, and in order to do that, we have got to turn off the TV, which is basically feeding your children, literally feeding us, even as grown folks, trash that is destroying our
Yep.
psychology and destroying our community, and reading books. And I understand for those of us out there, because we're in the South and we understand that this is the Bible Belt, and you can open that Bible, but we need to open some other books about creating wealth,
Right.
about expanding our horizons, about being able to broaden our scope intellectually so that we can think critically, make better decisions, understand our history in a very clear picture, Jimmy. And so turning off the TV, and for our young people in particular, they should be reading at least twice, if not 3x of what they're watching on television. So if they're watching television 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, then multiply that times two or three, and they should be reading at least that many hours a day. So if they're watching television 1 hour a day, they should be reading 3 hours a day. If they're watching television 2 hours a day, they should be
Right.
reading 6 hours a day.
And Tom,
What next?
tell them on a regular basis how smart they are. I mean,
Affirmations.
yes. I mean, constantly reinforce how smart they are, and I expect you, when you go to school, walk into that classroom, to be the smartest person in there. And I expect to see a report card with all A's on it. Set the bar really high. And give them a chance to reach for higher things, not settle for the C just to pass the class. But
Another thing. Go ahead.
oh, the other thing, Tom, is that we have to challenge our men. I don't care what stage you are in life. You have to now set an example and lead the way, not only for your children but for others. And this is very important, Tom. If you're in prison, when you get out of prison, start rebuilding your life. When you're in prison, take that time to start trying to gain the things that you need to rebuild your life. But when you come out, and if you're already free, I don't care what stage you are, focus on rebuilding your life so you can do something positive. Being a gangster and being a badass and beating people up and robbing and whatever, Tom, that's nothing. That's not positive. There's nothing good about that. You come from scholarly people. Tom, do you realize that we went thousands of years in Africa without a written language? I mean, written language started in Africa, but a lot of African people, Tom, could know their lineage going back 1,000 years, and it was passed down from child to child to child, each generation. You knew who your father was, your great grandfather, your great 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 grand. You can go back 1,000 years knowing your family history, Tom. We can't even. We don't even. A lot of us don't even know who our fathers are. So
I would agree. And I think to that point, Jimmy, that's another very important one, is that we have got to understand our history. And when I say understand our history, we're not talking about just understanding our history of the short period of time that we have been in the United States. I am talking about understanding our history globally.
well, Tom, and we're masters of language. Don't let anyone fool you that we're not. Uh, uh, we have great memories. I can. You know what, Tom? To prove a point, I can start rapping the what was that Rapper's Delight from Sugar Hill Gang 40 years ago, and I guarantee you, black folks start joining in with the hip to hop, the hippie to
Yeah.
the hip to, and so it's
To
not that
the
we
hip
don't.
hop, you don't
Yeah,
stop to talk to the bang bang boogie, up jump the
thank
boogie to the
you.
rhythm of the boogity beat.
And so people say, well, you can't quote Shakespeare, so you're not a
Shakespeare
learned
is
person.
irrelevant to us, Jimmy, but we have our own
Thank
cultural
you.
dynamic.
And so the things that are important to us, that are important to our culture, we can recite. Like I said, we hadn't heard Rapper's Delight in 40 years, but you can recite it now. Not all of it verbatim, but you can recite most of it, 85, 90%.
Yep.
I guarantee you. So
Yep.
it's not that we don't have great minds. We do. We just choose what we want to learn. So don't let people tell you because you don't know Shakespeare or Chaucer that somehow you're less intelligent than they are. That's the hell with that. That's why we have to refocus our minds, Tom, to understand that we are the Tommy Duncan, we are the Jimmy Stewart, we are the whatever we are, and we are great people. Don't allow anyone to tell you that you're not.
Jimmy, another thing that I would add to that is that we have got to unify within our community. We cannot continue to allow other folks to segment, divide, and conquer our community and highlight and us drink hook, line, and sinker our differences as opposed to understanding the things that bring us together and make us common. And it's not until we unify, Jimmy, that we're going to be able to create self-esteem, loyalty, and economy. Because if we understand our history, we understand that the French and the Russians and the Italians and the Germans and the U.S. were fighting each other, but at the end of the day, they understood that they had a common goal in order to create their wealth by taking
Tom,
advantage of what they saw right
how,
over there in
how
Africa.
they fighting each other when after they finish fighting, you rebuild your enemy, you restore their countries, you put it all back together better than it ever was, and now you're building wealth together. We're still
Absolutely.
divided, but I think we can come together time if we change our mindset. Hey, Miss B has a comment on the chat line. She agreeing with you about turning the TV off. She also makes a point about the impact of college education on future generations. But once again, we have to make sure our kids are well grounded, Tom, for greatness and understanding that our strength is our minds, our intelligence, and the fact that we can keep 1,000 years of history in our heads if we wanted to. So stop believing that we are somehow uneducated. We invented mathematics. We invented language, written language. We
Absolutely.
we built great pyramids, and somehow exported that knowledge around the world to the point today you have pyramids all in every continent, Tom, and no one knows how to build them anymore.
Still, until this
Still
day.
to this day. So, but this is the knowledge that
Absolutely.
we once had and that we once carried with us as we went around the world, taking our knowledge with us to various places. So, don't ever allow anyone to relegate you to inferiority. You are
Absolutely.
you may not be any better than anyone, but you're certainly not any less than anyone. And an argument can be made that black people are better than the rest of the world. By intermingling with us, they became better. We don't need
Right.
them; they needed us to populate the world and then save it. If it was left up to Homo erectus or some of the other five species of man that were on this planet, they all died out. Neanderthal, Pekin,
Yeah.
all the rest of them are gone. Who's left? The ones who came from Africa. So the world owes
Absolutely.
us a great deal of things. So when the Bible says honor your mother and father, Tom, we can debate whether the Bible is literal or not. But the reality is that it is what it is, and it's still grounded in science, and the wisdom is there.
Gotcha, Jimmy. Gotcha, Jimmy. So I'm going to kind of give a couple of words that I'm going to put in there. And this is, my model for recreating
Go
it. Of
ahead.
course, obviously, we're focused, it starts with unity. And so we talked a little bit about unifying the Black community. So, for instance, if we look at the African continent, there are some forces there that are trying to drive for a unified Africa with a unified African agenda. And part of that is going to be to get the hands of the Europeans and more recently the Asians out of their land, out of their economy, and away from their people so they can build a strong, unified Africa. But we expand on that. We look at the Africans in the Caribbean. We look at the Africans in South and North America. We look at the Africans in Canada. We look at Africans in Mexico and all over the world because there's
Right.
no place that we didn't go and build wealth for other people. So unity, family, which is the
Yes.
nuclear social construct of our self identity and our esteem. Economy, we have to build businesses, to build industries in order to build businesses, to build institutions in order to build economy and aggregate wealth. And then finally, we have to focus on self-defense, and or being able to protect ourselves through military power, because at the end of the day, Africans had so much abundance that they didn't have a need for sophisticated military
Well,
weaponry.
they
Obviously,
never agreed. So that was part of it.
absolutely. And so we have to, but at the end of the day, Jimmy, we cannot allow, with all of our love for science, mathematics, language, and peace, not be able to defend ourselves. So we have to have military, we have to have self-defense, because at the end of the day, the bullet's going to take your shit if you are not able to protect yourself.
Well, that is
Unity,
true, Tom.
family, economy, and self-defense or military.
I think
Those are my four. Those are my four items there, and I will let you close out, Jimmy, because
Well,
I know we are
I
running
think
out of time.
the music is starting to play. I think our producer is trying to signal to us that it's time to wrap up.
Gotcha.
So,
All
Tom,
right.
we always close out the same way, with a prayer. So, if you would do the honors, you may get overridden a little bit by the theme music, but hey, go for it.
Dear Father and gracious Master, we come before you again, thanking you for blessing us to be here again as men, as friends, and as cohorts. Father, we ask that you have blessed us to say something that may have inspired someone today to make a difference in our lives. Father, we ask you will continue to aspire to motivate us on a daily basis to walk the walk that you have set before us. Father, we thank you, and for all these blessings, we pray. Amen. I had to keep it short there, Jimmy. Next week, we absolutely. So we are equal opportunity. We had to jump on the brothers this time. Next week, we're going to talk about the sisters and what we're going to have to do this so that we can bring this whole thing together. Have a good evening.